Hello everyone, so I just thought I would just show you guys the lore of the two new characters for those who wanted to see it, because I'm not sure if this was officially posted anywhere. At least it wasn't when I tried looking for it, since it's not officially released yet. I figure that's why they have not put out the lore. But the lore for these characters is interesting, and the reason I'm on the store page is because the bio information on the killer select screen is very small, and this gives you a bit more space to see things and see his teachables and stuff, so it's not all squished together, and you guys wouldn't be able to read this as easily if you wanted to pause the video. But I'm just gonna read this lore out to you guys for any of the people out there who are interested. So his backstory is quite interesting, and one of the longer backstories we have in the game here. His name is Kenneth. Kenneth Chase was born in 1932 by a difficult labor which his mother would not survive. This event drove a rift between him and his father that never closed. As the boy grew, so did his father's resentment and his drinking habit. By the time Kenneth was at school, they lived mostly separate lives. Academically, he was unremarkable, coasting by on his significant athletic prowess. He grew tall and strong, excelling at track events, but shunned any attempts to coax him into team sports. On his walk home from school, he would often find feathers on the ground, and he soon began a collection, keeping them in a cigar box under his bed. With his father either at work or in an alcohol-induced stupor, Kenneth had hours to spend alone, transfixed by the regularity of the feathers' barbs and feeling the softness as he ran them over his lips. Watching the birds that came to the feeder in his garden, he imagined how soft they must be and resolved to catch one. He ingratiated himself with the local dentist, soon procuring some anesthetic. Using this, he rigged up a trap on the feeder that he hoped would knock out a bird long enough that he could touch it. After a few failed attempts, he managed to trap a robin. As it lay in his hand, he felt a sudden rush of a life at his mercy. He had planned to release it once it recovered from the anesthetic. Instead, as its eyes flickered back into consciousness and it began to struggle, his grip remained firm. His fingers slowly tightened around its throat, squeezing until its chest feathers were finally still. He disposed of the body, keeping just a feather, with which he started a new collection, discarding the others as fake. By the late 1940s, Kenneth had left school and started working as a busboy at a local diner. He had also escalated to larger prey, like squirrels, raccoons, and dogs, becoming skilled at customizing the anesthetic dosage for each. In early 1954, a young man went missing, and the town was turned upside down in a search. A few months later, Kenneth's father, while doing some work in the crawl space under the house, found a cigar box. He broke it open and saw, to his horror, that it contained feathers, animal paws, and a man's finger. Returning from work, Kenneth saw his father leaving the crawl space with a cigar box in his hands. He turned on his heel and never went home again. After a few weeks of living rough, he encountered a traveling circus, and with his prodigious strength was hired to work the ropes. He assumed a new name, Jeffrey Hawk. Suddenly surrounded by a close-knit community, Jeffrey had to learn to socialize. He donned a new personality like a disguise, quickly becoming known as charming and helpful, and was welcomed into his new family. Over the next decade, he stayed with the circus, traveling the length and breadth of the USA, but with the inherent life providing few repercussions, he fell into bad habits: drink, junk food, drugs. He indulged all of them to excess. For a time, these vices were enough, but then his old urges returned, and his nomadic existence became a cover for him to resume killing. He stole clothes and makeup from performers, fashioning a disguise that would let him get close to his victims before he anesthetized them, bringing them back to his caravan, where they would awake to find themselves bound and at his mercy. He would finally get to have his fun, mentally and physically torturing them, their screams fueling him before being lost in the night. Once their strength was at its lowest, he would carefully examine their fingers, searching for the prettiest, running them over his tongue and finding the tastiest. Once he found the best, he would cut it from their hand and proudly add it to his collection, disposing of the rest of the body as pointless waste. Men, women, young, old, he did not care. The essence of a good collection is in the variety, in the memories and stories they invoke. He removed the costume less and less, shedding his old personality with it, fully embracing the clown, his true self. With time, he became complacent and sloppy. A victim managed to work free of her bindings while he was sleeping off the drink. She escaped, screaming for help, and he awoke to find the rest of the circus bearing down on him. He whipped his horse and the caravan disappeared into the night. Since then, he has roamed the country, a parasite who could always be found at a carnival or a circus, but who had never been seen on any playbill. He lured those brave or foolish enough to come near, trapped them, and moved on before they could be found missing. Somewhere along the way, he left the ordinary roads of the USA behind him, traveling through a veil of mist and entering a new realm. It was a place of transience and impermanence, perfectly suiting the life he had chosen to lead. Feeling more at home than he had in his entire life, he set up camp and waited for his first visitor. And that is the lore of the clown. Now let's take a look at Kate Denson. Kate Denson. One of Kate Denson's earliest memories was standing in front of her family, singing a song that she'd learned that morning at school, and watching smiles spread across their faces. Seeing how something as simple as a song can make people so happy was the moment when she knew what she wanted to do with her life. She practiced, learning the guitar as soon as she was big enough to reach over it, and was performing in front of crowds by the time she was 8 years old. Her mother did everything she could to fulfill Kate's dreams, taking her all over her home state of Pennsylvania, then across the South, and even to Nashville itself. Kate won folk music competitions and talent shows whenever she participated, but for her to win, others had to lose, and that wasn't in her nature. She only wanted an outlet, a way to touch people's lives, to make them forget the worries of the world and just enjoy themselves, if only for a while. With age came a newfound freedom. She bought a battered old Chevy truck and was able to travel around by herself, meeting fans and making new friends wherever she stopped. Hers wasn't a story of rock success, though, just the road, her guitar, and maybe a good bourbon to end the day. From sun-baked festivals to dark and cozy bars, people flocked to her voice and her self-penned songs of friendship, family, love, and home. These sentiments weren't just lip service. She made sure to return home as often as she could to help out in her community and entertain the local children with her tales of the wider world. She saw it as a way of giving back, of supporting others in the same way she had. It was a home where she found most of her inspiration as well. She had always loved to take long walks in the woods around her town, exploring off the beaten track, finding a quiet spot to play and write her songs. She had a favorite location she returned to time and again, a natural hollow encircled by trees that looked almost as if it had been blasted out of the rocks thousands of years ago. Here she felt a strong connection to nature and to the earth itself. She let her mind be enveloped by the forest, and it rewarded her with constant inspiration. She picked up her guitar and played, her fingers dancing across the fretboard. The music that she made this time was unlike her usual uplifting tunes, being much more melancholy, even dark. Still, Something compelled her to continue, to finish the song. Around her, the leaves vibrated in unison with the guitar strings, and the boughs of the trees lengthened, coalescing into a living form. Spider-like legs descended from the canopy above, grasping for her. Regaining her senses, she grabbed a rock and tried to beat them back, but their skin was as hard as iron, and the rock simply bounced off and skittered away. The legs coiled like tendrils around her limbs, and lifted her towards the darkness overhead. Fog rolled across the clearing, obscuring both Kate and the creature of nightmares that drew her up towards itself. When the fog cleared, there was no sign of any struggle or of life, just an acoustic guitar, the scratch plate engraved with flowers, as well as the initials, KD, inlaid in mother of pearl. And there you have it, everyone, Kate Denson and the Clown's backstory. I hope you enjoyed this reading of their lore, and thank you very much for watching. As always, good luck out there in the fog, and see you next time.